Jasmine's mother, the former Sultana of Agrabah, was one of the many parental figures in Disney whose absence was always shrouded in mystery. Thankfully, Disney's ambiguity surrounding the missing parents in some of their animated classics has been cleared up a bit thanks to the live-action remakes that tend to add a bit more to the story. And this includes the remake of Aladdin, which added a few key moments and details that actually revealed a lot about what happened to Jasmine's mother. In fact, there's even a good chance that the remake revealed who the Sultana's killer was. And if that's the case, then he's been hiding in plain sight this entire time. While it was clear from the classic animated version of Aladdin that Jasmine's mother wasn't around because she passed away, it looks like her death was actually just one mysterious step in Jafar's sinister revenge plan. Now, for a while, Jafar's alleged involvement in the murder of the Sultan's wife was nothing more than a theory with almost no evidence to back it up, other than the fact that Jafar was hungry for power. And that was mainly because, in the animated version of Aladdin, the Sultana was only mentioned one time by the Sultan when he was comparing her to Jasmine. He claimed that she wasn't as picky as his daughter when it came to finding a suitor, which could imply that she didn't really love him and simply married him to form an alliance between Agrabah and her home city of shrouded. But that's a different rabbit hole to go down another day. The main point is that she was hardly talked about in the original Aladdin, and the same can be said for the animated sequels as well. And that meant for the longest time, all Disney fans could do was speculate about what happened to Jasmine's mother, at least until the live-action remake came out in 2018. Then it was made clear that the Sultan's wife was murdered, and there was a good chance that it was at the hands of his trusted vizier. And that's not simply because Jafar was the villain of the movie. His connection to Jasmine's mother actually goes a lot deeper than that when you consider their history and the fact that Jafar would have had nothing to lose and everything to gain from her death, including his chance of the throne. It turns out that Jasmine's mother wasn't from Agrabah and instead came from a city named shrouded, which in the Aladdin universe was established in South Asia and created a connection between her and the Sultan's vizier. You see, as a part of the added backstory for Jasmine's mother, Disney showed viewers that the Sultan and his wife were married as a part of an arranged marriage, and whether it was a result of their marriage or their marriage was a result of it, the two cities of Agrabah and shrouded formed a peaceful alliance. In fact, in the live-action remake, the Sultan referred to shrouded as Agrabah's oldest ally. Interestingly enough, that statement came as Jafar was talking about a possible battle or war with the city in South Asia, which right away revealed his sentiment for the city. He did not like it, and who knows, perhaps that disdain for the Queen's homeland led to a clash between her and Jafar that sadly, Jafar won, resulting in the death of the Sultana. Now, Jafar didn't randomly pick a city when he threw out the name shrouded. No, in the live-action version of Aladdin, during one of his villainous monologues, Jafar explained exactly why he hated that city in particular. According to him, on his journey to becoming the powerful sorcerer that he was shown to be, he spent some time in shrouded, and during his stay there, he must have committed a crime of sorts because he claimed to have been held in a prison there for 5 years, and it was beyond clear that he still held a grudge. That same grudge might have even extended to the Sultan's wife, who Jafar likely couldn't stand the fact that she came from the same place that treated him like he treated everyone else in the movie. And with the Sultana's death, Jafar would have an easier time as he attempted to convince the Sultan to wage war against his late wife's city. And it even seems like there were no lengths that Jafar wouldn't go to secure an army that was strong enough to take down shrouded. Jafar tried his best to convince the Sultan to marry off Jasmine to Prince Anders, a suitor who he knew had a strong military force and had war on his mind. In fact, there was even a deleted scene that depicted Anders' gift for Jasmine, and believe it or not, it was a cannon. Like an actual cannon, which could have been considered a show of support for Jafar's revenge-fueled vision. Thankfully, Jasmine got the final say in who she would marry, and since she wasn't interested in Prince Anders, Jafar's plan was foiled, at least that part of it. Sadly, it was too late for anyone to save Jasmine's mother, who had been murdered long before her daughter was old enough to consider marriage. Now, before the finger can be pointed directly at Jafar, it's important to rule out anyone else in the kingdom as a suspect, and thanks to Aladdin's description of the Sultana, that's easy. It's clear that the fact that Jasmine's mother hailed from the same city that imprisoned him, that he would consider her an enemy or a threat, especially since she stood in his way to the throne. But as far as anyone else in Agrabah was concerned, the Sultana was wonderful, and according to Aladdin, someone who lived among the actual people of the city, no one would have hurt her. It was actually one of the more interesting added lines in the live-action remake, and it showed just how easy it was to add depth to a world with just a simple idea. After Aladdin saved Jasmine from the guards at the beginning of the movie, he mentioned that no one in Agrabah had seen the princess, referring to her though she was still in disguise, so she had no idea. And that was when she told him why. According to Jasmine, she hadn't been able to leave the palace ever since her mother was assassinated. Apparently, her father, the Sultan, didn't think the same city that killed his wife would be safe for his daughter. Little did he know, keeping Jasmine in the palace with Jafar might have been keeping her closer to the assassin than he ever anticipated. It was at this point that Aladdin explained that it wasn't anyone in the streets of Agrabah who killed the Sultana. He said that she was loved by everyone and that the people of the city had also been afraid since she was killed. And if he was telling the truth, which he didn't have reason not to, then that would limit the list of potential assassins to those in the palace who had motive, particularly someone who wasn't from Agrabah, someone like Jafar. Jafar also had more motive to kill the Sultan's wife than anyone else in the palace, and as anyone who's binge-watched Criminal Minds or Law & Order will tell you, the motive is everything. Now, as mentioned earlier in the video, Jafar had almost everything to gain from killing Jasmine's mother. Not only did it allow the sorcerer to grow closer to the Sultan, who likely needed someone he could trust to confide in and support him as he mourned the loss of his wife, but it also got Jafar closer to controlling Agrabah. If Jasmine's mother was even half as observant and intelligent as Disney portraying Jasmine as, then she would have been able to see right through Jafar's sinister plot and put an end to it before it even started. So in order to see himself rise to power, Jafar needed to remove the queen from the chessboard to leave the Sultan vulnerable. This gave Jafar more than enough motive to assassinate the Sultana from within the palace without anyone being aware of what truly happened. Not to mention the bloodlust that Jafar clearly felt for Shrouded, the Sultana's home city. Considering what the live-action version of Jafar described in the movie, he did not enjoy the time that he spent in Shrouded, which is fair since he was imprisoned for 5 years. That being said, though, fans don't know exactly what he did. Considering Jafar's villainous nature, whatever crime he committed most likely warranted his punishment. But as the live-action remake showed, Jafar didn't forget his time in a cell and seemed to constantly call for war with Shrouded. There was even a point where the Sultan had to explain to his supposed most trusted vizier that Agrabah's alliance with Shrouded was their oldest bond with another city and that they couldn't break it. Now, if he was so pushy about war with the South Asian city after the death of Jasmine's mother, it's hard not to wonder if he was as pushy when she was alive. Surely she wouldn't have allowed Jafar to speak ill of her homeland, and the queen would have actively spoken against any sort of action towards Shrouded, and that would have made her a target on Jafar's list, and one that quickly could have worked her way to the top when he realized that there was a chance that killing the Sultana could have outright sparked a war with her home city. You see, as Disney explained, the Sultan and his wife were part of an arranged marriage that also acted as an alliance, forming a bond between their two cities. And if she was a princess of Shrouded, like many fans suspect she was, her death might have been enough to break their alliance and force a war, in which Jafar would get to watch those who imprisoned him likely die. No matter how you look at it, it's clear that Jafar had more than enough motive to have been involved in the assassination of Jasmine's mother, and on top of that, he was also one of the few people in the kingdom of Agrabah who would have had a reason to dislike the Sultana. So what do you think, though? Was Jafar the one who assassinated Jasmine's mother, or is her death still shrouded in too much mystery? Make sure you let us know in the comments below.